with demand expected to come back, the question remains, does this mean the economy is back on track?
Companies now, after experimenting with offshore in places like India, Philippines, and Poland, want to bring those jobs back.
We invest in the U.S. We're the biggest exporter in the country. In the cycle we're in right now, we're creating jobs.
From Radio America, it's Neil Asbury's Made in America, the show that explores American industry, large and small, and promotes American-made products everywhere. Put Neil Asbury's Made in America to work for you.
A very big welcome to you today. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, there was a very, very big vote this past week in Alabama about the unionization of Amazon, their distribution operations, and it was a resounding no. Mm-hmm. It was a resounding no. It wasn't even close. It wasn't even close. And I remember back, it's 5 or 6 years ago. Boy, how time flies. When there was another big union vote, and that time in the state of Tennessee.
Very big, very important.
Whether or not Volkswagen would unionize. I remember Stephen Moore joined us before and after the vote, the incredible economist.
Well, he did a great job covering it, and he covered it almost every night with Fox to let people know what was really going on down there, because it was a very contentious, very heated vote, and it was very important because it was going to signal where this right-to-work concept was going to go.
And again, it was a resounding. Though even Volkswagen themselves was in support of the to be unionized, which is kind of amazing. It still lost. It's still and at that time you had the Obama administration too, who was putting their hands on the scale, tipping the scale. You had Volkswagen in Germany trying to support the unionization of their plant in Tennessee. Now, the politicians in Tennessee, they came out against the unionization, but it was all up to the employees. After all, it was all up to the employees.
Well, it's sort of like John Steinbeck's "The Grape of Wrath" at the end of the novel. And that took place during the Depression. One of the characters says, you can't stop the people. We'll just keep it coming. And the point of the matter is you can't stop the folks for wanting what they want and not having something shoved down their throat. And it really is evident to me between the Tennessee vote a few years ago and this vote today. The people are saying it very clearly. We don't want the
right
union.
to work.
We want the right to work.
Right to work is alive and well.
Exactly. We don't want that. I think it's important.
And now more states have actual right to work laws than states that don't. So I think that's good news. I think that's good news for the American economy. Hey, we got a really great guest coming on right now, Charles Lipson. He's from the University of Chicago. He writes about a lot of different things. He's written this past week in Real Clear Politics an article that caught our eye, Biden's Bait and Switch Presidency. He's joining us right now. Charles, welcome to Made in America.
It's absolutely a pleasure, and I completely agree with you about the importance of the union vote. It's pretty striking, though, to see how hard Amazon lobbied against the unions. This from Jeff Bezos, the owner of the extremely woke Washington Post, which would never come out in favor of right-to-work laws, never come out against unions, all the rest. But I guess it's a very different thing when it's your own pocketbook.
I mean, let's talk about that for a second, Charles, because you're absolutely right. I mean, the hypocrisy of it all. The hypocrisy of it. I mean, Bezos, was it last week, came out and says, this next I guess it's like $2.3 trillion of infrastructure, which is really not infrastructure, very little of its infrastructure. You have Bezos out there supporting Biden. Let's get that infrastructure deal done. I'm all for support of that. And but when it comes to his company, boy, he's not carrying the Democratic line, is he?
Not at all. I posted on this. I didn't write an article yet, but I have a picture under Kirsten Gillibrand, the senator from New York, saying her tweet saying paid leave is infrastructure, child care is infrastructure, caregiving is infrastructure. And I have a picture of Ralph Wiggum with his hand, from The Simpsons with his hand held up, asking a question, am I infrastructure, Miss Gillibrand?
Yeah. That's funny.
And, of course, the answer is yes. I mean, he has to be infrastructure. And shoelaces are infrastructure and all the rest. It's just stunning. It's all part of what you introduced, really, which is bait and switch. The big bait and switch for Biden is Biden was not elected for anything Biden was going to do. Biden was elected because he was not Donald Trump. And people wanted a kind of restoration of normalcy. And there was a kind of, for many voters, they were just weary of the way Trump handled the presidency. What Biden has done with that, and Biden ran, for the most part, I mean, there were occasional exceptions, but Biden ran as a center-left Democrat. And he is not governing as one. He is governing as far to the left as he can get away with. And we know that because he has done nothing bipartisan despite all his promises during the campaign. So I think it's the oldest marketing trick in the book, right? Come on in for product A, and then once you're in the store, we're out of product A. We're going to sell you product B. It costs twice as much.
Well, it's sort of like the old statement, someone bought a pig in a poke. I mean, they were expecting this, and they got that. But he didn't really run for office. He shuffled. I noticed how he walks now. He shuffles. He walks like my old grandfather walked. It's very weird. But, yeah,
well,
I think...
Yes. It is very striking that they will not release his medical reports. I mean, it was striking that Trump didn't release his financial reports, right? And they were on him about that. But the media was on him. They don't say anything about the fact that Biden will not release any reports about his cognitive health. And people have a right to know about it. And there's just media silence about it.
So here we're talking about baiting and switching, and for sure we're seeing, you're 100% correct, Charles, that what people thought they're not getting at all. And we seem to be in one of the most progressive, I mean, my God, it's only about 80 days. I can't wait to see what happens by 160 days, Neil. This is going to be awful. I don't know if we can survive all of this. I mean, the excitement of it all may, some of the older people may have to go because they're just going to hyperventilate about the whole thing.
And Charles, I mean, how do you think that this is going to play, in the not distant view? I mean, he isn't who a lot of voters, thought he was, right? And he did peel off a lot of undecided voters, a lot of centrist Republicans, a lot of people, like you said, they were just kind of. They were just, the kind of brain dead over what Trump was doing and who he was as a person, his personality. I think a lot of people really loved his policies, but they were just tired of the sort of dialogue in our country, and it's got to get better, it's got to improve. So let's get this centrist Democrat. But that's, like you said, that's not who he is. I mean, I haven't seen any centrist sort of policies or movement or whatsoever. I mean, it's hardly even lip service anymore. There's not even lip service of being a moderate. So will a lot of voters get turned off by that? I mean, what do you think will happen in the midterms?
Well, let me talk about what I think their political calculations are. I think their political calculation is that they will lose the House to be almost certainly in the midterms. That's normally what happens. You lose a few seats. They only have a 4 or 5 seat majority, depending on who dies this week in the House. But and they have to keep them all together to win any votes. They will lose that. That means that anything that needs to be passed by law has to be passed between now and 2022. I don't think they're thinking very much right now about how all this will affect 2024. I think that their lesson was that whatever Barack Obama didn't get through in the first 2 years was basically stalled. The second thing I think they're thinking is that once they lock in some of these programs, and these programs are being sold under a false narrative that they're infrastructure, for example, or that they're COVID relief. Only about a third or so of the programs are what the headline is. Most of all of the infrastructure spending, the real infrastructure, not shoelaces or daycare, all of the real infrastructure could have been paid for in the first COVID bill with the non-COVID spending in that first bill.
Charles, incredible stuff, very insightful. We still got a lot more to talk about. Folks, we're with Charles Lipson and together with Dr. Rich Rothman. And Charles with the University of Chicago. He's just got a piece this week in Real Clear Politics, Biden's bait and switch presidency. Still a lot more to talk about. Stay with us.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman, and we are together with Charles Lipson from the University of Chicago. Charles, I mean, there's just so much that I want to get your thoughts on, but President Biden, another one of the real part of his liberal agenda, super way out there, is packing the Supreme Court. And remember how he wanted to be a moderate, like you said. He wanted to be a moderate, so you couldn't be you couldn't come out against the filibuster, or you couldn't come out that you're going to change the Supreme Court. But now that he's got elected, like you say, he tacked way to the left. And this week he says he's going to appoint a presidential commission to study the Supreme Court. And that's just code for packing the Supreme Court. But, is that really going to happen? I mean, they set up commissions to take care of their crazies on the left, so he at least acted upon it. But it kind of goes out there and kind of dies off, and that's it. Or do we have a really risk that something will come out of this?
Actually, I think both things are going to happen. That is, I think he's appointing the commission because he promised that he would appoint such a commission, and he said so repeatedly. So he's appointing a commission. They won't pack the Supreme Court. They're not the votes in the Senate to do it, and it would be incredibly politically controversial. And Mitch McConnell has said, if you pack it, we will pack it once we get back. This is just a really bad idea. But I think what they will try, and I think they'll make some proposals, none of which will go anywhere about Supreme Court, serve for 18 years or whatever it is, because all of those judges are appointed for life. So when you make any proposals to change those rules, you have to get a constitutional amendment. But I think what they will try to do is pack the lower courts. And I think that they will do it on the grounds that the lower courts are so overburdened. Don't you just understand it? They're just not enough judges. We really need to have a lot more judges. So they've lost control of a number of the districts, right? And people should understand. I'm not a lawyer, but I play one on TV. What happens when the lower courts make a decision is a lot of times that's the end of it, right? But if lower court in one district decides things one way and a lower court in another district decides it another, it goes up to the Supreme Court. So if you have a very liberal district in California and a conservative district in Alabama, and they make different decisions on a constitutional question, the Supreme Court has to decide which of these apply to the whole country. And the Supreme Court is now conservative. So what they would like to do is make the lower courts go their way. There are two levels of lower courts, the district and the appellate level, and they would like to pack those. And I think that's what they'll consider doing. And I don't know, but they'll have to do it fast, because if they don't get it done before 2022, it's dead.
Well, I think you're 100% correct in terms of the timing. They are going to rush this as fast as possible because they do know if they keep going in this direction and the signals that they're giving and the optics that they have, whether it's going to be on the border or anything else that you're discussing right now, which is extremely cogent, that they are going to lose the House. I think, and history tells us you're correct on that as well. That history tells us that they're going to lose the House. You know, who knows? They might even lose, the Senate if they keep going in this direction, because I think they're going to scare a lot of people along the way. I find it interesting, Charles, that you even have Democratic mayors in Florida supporting the GOP elected governor as he's being attacked by the lefties and the media and being silenced. That's got to start telling you something. Wait a minute, what's going on out there?
I think that's exactly right. I like to post these kind of parody things, like I was saying about Ralph Wiggum, and I posted one where 60 Minutes, shocking new report on Ron DeSantis with a picture of a man clubbing a baby seal. And next week, doesn't that look like DeSantis on a whaling ship?
Wait a minute. Do you remember those commercials? They would show that? That was, the World Wildlife Fund or something years ago, back in the 70s. They would show the people up there clubbing the baby seals, and, oh, my God, people were throwing up in their living room.
No shame. Well, what it tells you, of course, is that CBS sees Ron DeSantis as a real threat. I mean, he comes from a split state, so he's used to working with an electorate that's not like California or New York.
Yeah. Hey,
well said.
I think that just like the NFL, had to go down that through that dark tunnel. They did come out the other side. I think they're getting their act together. Major League Baseball looks like they're going to have to go through that same dark tunnel. It looks like they just did not learn the lesson. And who cares? Who cares about baseball?
Baseball been very, very bad to me.
Well said. Hey, look, I boycotted the NFL, haven't watched the game forever, and I don't care. I don't miss it. I got better things to do than to watch these professional athletes and their owners and their commissioners and all of that. I mean, they're just so disconnected.
I'm devoting all my spare time to watching Prince Harry and Meghan.
Well, that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother story.
Good to talk to you guys.
Charles, thanks a lot, man. I hope you come back to us, be on with us real soon. Charles Lipson from the University of Chicago. And we have coming up New York State Senator Daphne Jordan talking about the Excluded Worker Fund. Yeah, you really got to listen to this. This is absolutely crazy.
Made in America.
Sharply higher at the open, stocks continued to perform well over the course of the day Tuesday.
And I think that bodes well here over the next couple of years for having bigger demands coming to this country.
Now, more of Neil Asbury's Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Ruffman. Hey, Rich, Charles Lipson, I mean, what an incredible guy, man.
Wasn't he fun?
He's got great stories.
Oh, he's great. Just great.
He went to Yale. He's got a Ph.D. from Harvard. He's got an incredible radio voice. And a great writer, and great ideas. I mean, wow, we could talk to him for a long time. But New York State. I mean, you grew up in New York. Mm-hmm. I grew up across the river in New Jersey. I've been in New York so many times. I started my career in New York City. It's so important to me. I love that place. And but they had just been doubling down on wokeness and what they're doing and how they're spending their money and it's just absolutely insane. I mean, the Governor Cuomo and de Blasio, where they're taking that city. Now, I know we have some elections coming up, and I pray that New York just does something very different. And I do see some interesting people jumping into the contest to be governor of the state. And
Lee Zeldin announced.
Well, there you
this
go.
Week
That's who I was thinking
that
of.
He's out there, wants to save the state. It's very interesting. I grew up in a place called Gramercy Park in Manhattan, and I had one, until I was 16 and I started college. And I had one point of view of what I thought the world was, because in New York, it's New York. It's Frank Sinatra defined the whole
center of the universe.
Yeah, right. If you can make it, you can make it anywhere. But when I went to Syracuse, I spent 7 long years in the snow, and it was very frightening. And got all these degrees and stuff like that. And I found there's a whole nother world out there
in New York.
In New York State, and it's very important to understand that. Because there are some wonderful, it's a great state. It's a gorgeous state. Upstate New York and the Adirondacks and the Lakes regions and the Thousand Islands. It's a magnificent state. So I am so excited that we have this next guest on the show who's going to tell us the truth of what's going on up there. And she probably represents a lot of people who feel that way.
Well, what can I say? You just did my job. We're very pleased to have on New York State Senator Daphne Jordan. Daphne, welcome to Made in America.
Oh, I'm thrilled to be on your show, so thanks for the invite.
Well, there's so much going on in New York, and we need someone really connected in New York to kind of, to tell us what's going on, to read the tea leaves. And something happened. I guess you just passed a budget. It's part of your 2021-2022 state budget, and part of that budget is called the Excluded Workers Fund. And as I read this, they've actually passed this and have given $21 billion in taxpayer money to illegal immigrants and released convicted felons. And by some reports, this slush fund would provide $27,000 per person to the very people who broke the law. Wow.
Well,
explain this to us.
Let me tell you that this was, without question, one of the most contentious issues in this year's state budget. And it was changed from the numbers that you just gave. So it was $2.1 billion in cash handouts to illegal immigrants. And the amount was lessened to $15,600, which still is a ton of money to be given to someone that is here illegally. So what this fund does is it's taking $2.1 billion from the general fund, which is taxpayer dollars, and giving that money to illegal immigrants on the basis that they were excluded from federal aid packages since the start of the pandemic. And, on that front, the federal government got it right. You don't give these people unemployment benefits. But New York, no sense at all. We're going to condone these illegal immigrants who are here every day in our country illegally. They are breaking the law. They are working. If they are working, they're working illegally. Their employers are not paying unemployment insurance. And so here we are rewarding them. To me, it's incredulous that we would even think of giving to these people when our state government was broke. Before COVID, we were $6.1 billion in the hole, and we had to beg the federal government to bail us out. The federal government gave us $12.6 billion, and that was more than enough to close the budget gap without resorting to any new tax increases. But we still have increased taxes to over $4 billion on top of that, and we're giving illegal immigrants $2.1 billion.
So you know what that really says when we were watching this being the $1.9 trillion being passed, that and the states and the Democrats were demanding that the money goes back to the blue states that really needed the help and the cities that needed the help in the blue states. It shows once again that those on the left in the Democrat-controlled states continue, no matter what, they are so static about the whole thing that they can't get beyond making the bad decisions. Once again, they have an opportunity to make a good decision, but they make a bad decision. And the money goes out the window. They still don't resolve their problems. They create more problems. And it shows once again, Neil, that America comes last.
That's right.
So, Daphne, I mean, is there any chance to change the direction of New York? I mean, can there be a Republican governor in New York? I mean, in the legislature, can there be a Republican legislature in New York? Can that exist? Is the calculus there?
Well, everyone has to vote. You have to. We do need a Republican governor. We do need to flip the Senate back into Republican hands, Republican majority. And I can tell you right now that the left Democrats are the ones that are ruling what happens in New York. They have control in the Senate and the Assembly over what would be called the moderate Democrats. So, New York is going to keep going left unless people vote and they get out and they vote Republican.
Daphne, we got to take a quick break here. We're with Daphne Jordan, New York State Senator. We're going to be right back with Dr. Rothman and I, and a lot more to talk about. Stay with us.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman, and we are together with New York State Senator Daphne Jordan. Daphne, I think the whole country has been watching what's going on with Governor Cuomo and the kind of guy he is. I mean, it's really, frightening. I mean, very bizarre, what's been coming out, not only with his management of COVID, and I mean, my goodness, how was he worshipped during this whole COVID thing when he was having his media
on a daily basis
events, right?
On a daily basis.
Oh my goodness, he gets an Emmy.
He's mirroring the president.
And
right.
And a lot of people, he should be the vice president, or he should be
the president.
Well,
that's what he should be, and we should give him an award. Oh, wait a minute, they gave him an award. That's right, they gave him an Emmy award. He wins an Emmy award for a disaster.
That's right, and he wrote a book that he was paid $4 million for on his wonderful leadership. I mean, there's so much to question about our governor. It is really sad. He has put a dark cloud over New York State government. We have sexual harassment scandals going, even one that would be sexual assault. He has his book deal, which, we're finding out now that he used state employees to help him with that, and that's against ethics here in New York. You can't use your political office for personal gain, which is what he seemingly has done. We have the cover-up of the 15,000 nursing home deaths, because of a mandate that
and it may be more than that, because numbers are coming out now again. That's even increasing.
Completely outrageous.
That's horrible.
It is. And, anyone can make a mistake, but that order stayed in place for a long time, and the fact that he covered it up. And at the time, when I heard he was making a book, I jokingly said in my office, he's probably not releasing the numbers because he doesn't want it to ruin his book deal. And sure enough, it sounds like that's what probably happened. But yeah, the public has lost trust in our governor. I would say just about the whole legislature, whether you're Republican or Democrat, has lost trust in him. I think that's another reason why the Democrats on the left were able to get what they want in the budget, because the governor is not as strong a bargaining partner anymore. He's not liked. He's been threatened with impeachment, and the leaders of the Senate and the Assembly have called for his resignation. So that put him in a poor bargaining situation in terms of the budget.
So Daphne, I have to ask you this because I don't want to lose the time. So when you get out and you talk to your constituents and you hit Main Street, wherever that happens to be in the different regions that you represent, what are they saying to you? I mean, what are the people? I mean, they're good people. What are the folks in the areas that you are in? What are they begging you to do?
I'll tell you that I was at an event earlier today, a yellow ribbon ceremony for our soldiers that are now fighting, and I spoke to so many people. They just can't imagine that this money was given to illegal immigrants on, that has cost them. Everyone has worked hard and has done their work legally. When they speak to me, they want to cry. They're very upset. And this has come at a time when we see so many people are still jobless because of the pandemic. Our economy is suffering. So many businesses have closed. And who are we helping? We're helping illegal immigrants. We gave $2.1 billion to them, and the budget set aside $1 billion to help the small businesses in trouble. That tells you a lot, doesn't it?
Wow.
It's just outrageous.
Yeah.
It is.
It's just outrageous. I think the governor got the idea for his book from Young Frankenstein, the movie. I think he did. Because Young Frankenstein, Gene Wilder's grandfather was, the crazy Frankenstein doctor. He wrote the book, How I Did It. And the governor could have written the book, and he could have called it How I Did It, because look what he did,
When is it,
right.
Daphne? When is the gubernatorial election, and can Cuomo run again?
It sounds like he's going to. I think he's been very weakened, and people need to wake up. People need to wake up and see he's not the great governor that he's made himself out to be. He has, great people working on his publicity all the time, and so that's helped him immensely. But he has really not done a good job for the people in the state of New York. I think there are a number of candidates, Republican candidates, that are looking to get the nod from the party to run. And I think any one of them that have thrown their hat into the ring would be an excellent choice. So, people need to be informed, and I'm afraid that the media isn't always helpful in giving out the correct information and what's really going on.
And it wasn't that long ago that there was a Governor Pataki, right? A great governor. And
Pataki releases statements every now and then. I see them.
A Republican governor. But, it wasn't that long ago that New York did have a very successful Republican governor.
You're right. You're right. And it can happen again. People need to be informed. People need to know what's really going on here.
Daphne Jordan, New York State Senator, out there fighting hard. We got to support her. We got to support all the good folks in New York. They deserve much better than what they have in this next election. Like you said, Daphne, people got to get out and vote. We can change this. We can change directions. Thanks for being on the show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Coming up, Dr. Rothman and I are going to have some final thoughts for the day.
Made in America.
Welcome to Made in America. I'm your host, Neil Asbury, together with co-host Dr. Rich Rothman. So, Rich, a lot at stake in New York. A lot at stake in New York. Are they going to let this guy just get away with this? How many, people have come out with sexual harassment, even worse than that, sexual assault? Who was it? The Senator Gillibrand, right? She was the lady that, that you had to believe. You had to believe the women, the brave women have come forward.
Look at Kavanaugh.
Yeah.
Look what they did with Kavanaugh.
Look what they did to him. And here,
What they did with Clarence Thomas.
Yeah. My goodness, and you got Cuomo and everybody's just kind of like laying low, being quiet.
Well, I
don't know. They don't know how to deal with it.
Well, it's not just that. How do you deal with everything that surrounds it? And what surrounds it is this protective barrier, prophylactically speaking, I guess, of the media. And the media are protecting him to a degree.
Yeah, but
here's my example.
Look what they do to DeSantis.
Yes, that's exactly what I was about to say. That's exactly correct.
Completely made up stuff.
CBS News makes up fake news. They lied. And by the way, since I've been publishing for all these years, I do know publishing law fairly well. What they did is malice aforethought. If you premeditate to lie about somebody in the media and you don't catch it right away and stop it and say, all right, we made a mistake, we're in equal amount of space and time, explain that you made a mistake and we're correcting it, we take it back. Equal opportunity discussion. You're liable for slander. You're liable to be sued for libel. And Tom Cotton was in Miami yesterday, and I was at an event, and he was there. And I listened to him, and my good buddy asked a question. Mike Carricard asked a question: Can can DeSantis and the state of Florida and the Attorney General for the state of Florida file a claim against CBS for what they did? And he said, yeah. He said they could do that if they wanted to. I hope they do. Somebody has to be held accountable. But the point is, you're right. They will vilify DeSantis. They will protect those on the left, like Cuomo and his crazy, brother Alfredo. That's from The Godfather, on CNN. And that's the problem. So where's the average person in upstate New York or in New York? Forget about New York City. It can be really hard. Unless they finally had enough of this, and I'm not so sure they have. But where do they get the information, and how do they get the information out? I mean, listen, the media silenced a sitting president. Can you imagine doing that to Obama? Can you imagine if they did that to FDR? Can you imagine if they did that to Harry Truman? Just astounding, Neil. We live in very amazing times, and we're seeing things that you would never, ever think you would see. And so that worries me. Yeah, I'm sure the folks in New York don't want to live the way they're living, why they haven't opened up in a lot of those Democratic states, for that matter. But they're stuck in this, it's sort of like Groundhog Day. They get up every day, it's the same old, and they're all screwed. And,
and just getting along with it, just getting along with it. I had a friend of mine who was living up in the Washington area, and he came to Florida, was down in Florida for a vacation. A lot of people come to Florida, for spring break, but a lot of family. I mean, Florida really got a lot of people coming down here.
Packed. Yeah, this state is packed right now.
And he said it was like such a breath of fresh air because people were normal, and it just made him feel good that you can go out and live somewhat of a normal life, and it just shows how far this has gone up in the Northeast.
Why aren't they going after Whitmer in Michigan? Michigan's doing more lockdown. We know the states that locked down got nowhere.
Well, right now,
nowhere.
The most COVID cases are coming out of where? New York, New Jersey, and Michigan.
That's right. And yet they vilify the most successful governor in the 48 contiguous states anyway, and they leave the other guys alone.
Yeah. Now, Florida's doing really great. I mean, I'm very proud of the state of Florida and how it's kind of been a model for the country, I believe. And others are starting to see that. Well, how many people in New York are getting out of New York? Well, you were talking about that just earlier. Even the dinosaurs in the Museum of Natural History.
They're out of there. They're leaving.
Have started.
No, they booked tickets. They're going.
Have started the long trek down to Florida.
There's a discount on Amtrak. They took it.
Well, Rich, unfortunately, we're out of time. But we're going to be back again next week for another adventure of Made in America, where we never stop fighting for your jobs.